So right now, it feels like Flesh and Blood is facing a wall of ice, and I'm here with the Gongaii crew to ask them if that accurately represents the meta, or if it's just a couple results that is skewing from outside looking in.
A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando.
Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast, and welcome, gents. Thanks for joining us today. So yes, we just finished the Armory event here at Gongaii Games. Got the crew together again because it was Blitz, so we have plenty of time afterwards. So what we'll do first is I'm going to explain the cast and the rules, and then we'll go around the table and introduce ourselves. So we're going to basically have a little debate on if the current wall of ice that we've seen at Battle Hardened leads, and then the calling in Indy accurately represents the meta as we see it today. Now, the way this is going to work is each of you gets a card.
Cool.
So as we go around the table and we say our opinions, you get one challenge over the course of the evening. And to challenge someone, you must toss your card at them. And then your card is spent.
Aim for the eyeballs now.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right, and if you can actually hit them, you get bonus points, which mean for nothing. The show where points count, but they don't. All right, so let's go ahead around the table and let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, I am Kevin. I am a Rhinar Classic Constructed player. Playing Rhinar since late August of 2022 through the metas and stuff, like just for the past several months. So yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what to play in Blitz because I'm having a hard time figuring it out. But I'm trying different heroes. But yeah, I'm a Rhinar. I'm part of Brew Pack. That's right, through and through.
Oh, and speaking of Wall of Ice, Icelander did win our Armory tonight for Blitz.
Oh,
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Is this where I talk about my opinion?
Nope.
Okay.
Steven.
Hi, my name's Steven. Dory Dash for CC, and then whatever can OTK people for Blitz.
I'm Billy. I guess Viscera is what I'm known for in CC currently, and I guess Emperor and Blitz, but I kind of like everything.
Fair enough.
My name's Adam. Similar to Billy, I kind of float around a lot of different heroes between the different formats. I'm really mostly known for Dash and CC. I haven't played her in a while because there are much better decks, I think, at least recently. We'll get into that. Been playing TCGs for better half my life, so yeah, I've been through all the gamut of the different kind of TCGs, and Flesh and Blood's just been real fun for this one. So yeah, excited to get into this talk particularly.
Yep, and we've got a good crew because there's some good questions tonight about the Ice Heroes specifically, of what the hell happened to the Runeblades, where did the Runeblades all go, and then yeah, I think Dash coming out of Dynasty was expected to be pretty good, and I think that has not necessarily been the case. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with you, Adam, on the Dash thing. Why has Dash been, I think, disappointing expectations?
Yeah, I think it's because, certainly Dash got a lot of good tools in Dynasty, right, and a lot of fun things for sure, and it was really promising in the beginning. I think it's because, like most metas, when you get new toys, people have to figure things out, right, and I really think that's all it took. It just a little bit of time for different decks, like Icelander, Oldhim, we'll get into those, to learn how to play around a lot of those new toys that Dash has specifically. So really, ultimately, I think it comes down to Dash is a really flexible hero in that you can build her deck construction to focus on the meta, but when the meta is really split, like we see it most recently, it's either really skewed towards aggressive or really skewed towards really slower controlling matchups. And there's very little wiggle room in between for mid-range and stuff like that. It feels like she has to pick one or the other, which of course gimps her into one side or the other. Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, if you're trying to play the slower matchup, to fight into these control matchups, time is not on her side a lot of times. You'd think it is because of the whole pistol and how that can get into, but when you're down with a lot of blues and these Oldhims and Icelanders can pitch stack a lot better, their late game is a lot better than just 2-2-2 and go. It's a lot better than that. She really struggles to keep up with them late game, and if she can't get there early game, which is not the way to play into that because they're just going to fatigue you, it really stifles and hurts her trying to get there on either side is really, I think, where she fell.
So is part of the pitch stacking problem because she has so many no block items? Is that part of the issue?
Part of that, and because of ultimately there's a lot of blues at the end, right? You want your blues because you want to be able to activate your items more.
Right.
And so when you're trying to get your blues at the end to make sure you can consistently activate your items at the end, once you have your items out, then it makes it difficult. I think they just have more oomph at the end game even.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing overall, I mean, Dash for a long time, her strength in the meta has been because of her flexibility,
Yes.
the ability to pivot with a 9 or 12 card sideboard.
Right.
Maybe 15, whatever. But you're saying that flexibility is not flexible enough currently?
Exactly. I think with the current meta, it's skewing much more towards one end of the spectrum and the other. There's much less, because we're used to seeing, like, back when Dash came out, you saw a lot more like mid-range Viscerai, mid-range Rhinar, things like that, where she stood out a lot more. Now it's like Fi is going to blow her out of the water if she doesn't get every single thing correct right away. Icelander and Oldhim are going to outvalue her, as weird as that sounds these days. They just have a lot of good tools coming up as well. So yeah, it just, unfortunately, she's kind of outpaced on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, next question. As our resident Runeblade player and someone who I think personally is probably one of the best Viscerai players I've ever played, what happened to Viscerai?
Icelander is just a horrible matchup. The fact that Viscerai wants to start with a non-attack action and then that opens up the window for Icelander to disrupt you. Basically, she kills your whole turn before you can do anything. Like Oldhim's tough too, but at least like he can't stop your turn. Mm-hmm. Like you can still play out whatever your plan was. He might, give you a frostbite with stalagmite or something like that. So you can at least plan around that. Icelander, it's very much like do I get to do anything? No, cool. Then I'll just wait till next time. And there's tech cards to make it a bit better, and I think some of the nerfs help that she recently got, but it's still Viscerai's toughest matchup.
Sure.
And I mean, I think Briar's kind of in the same thing. She at least can start with an attack, but to turn on Rosetta, you still need that non-attack. And since her stuff is generally 0, like a Channel Lake Frigid or whatnot, still slows her down enough for, I think, Icelander to edge it out in most cases.
Okay. So I'll open this one up to the table. You go speak in as you want, right? So one of the arguments on why the calling Indy was a wall of ice, so there was one Briar in there and the rest was ice heroes. One of the arguments on why that happened was because everyone was teched for Briar, thinking that after the recent BNS that she would be strong. Do we think that's true? And is that why what happened in... Right,
I think that's at least part of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess since I start talking, I'll keep going. But I think it's also just like, yeah, ice got worse, but like ice was already kind of so far ahead that it might not have gotten worse enough. Especially considering that, like for instance, if I hadn't lost Belittle, maybe we would have seen 5. But the fact that all the top heroes kind of got like a parallel downward thing, it meant really nothing changed. Mm-hmm. Ice was still there. What kind of could fight it got brought down, and again, I think Briar stands more of a chance, but I think it's still tough.
But Briar did play Belittle, right?
Not mostly, right? So the
Okay.
only deck that really went the distance with the Belittle was the Pro Tour Leo deck, right? I think a lot of people played it, but it only really had a good result in the one tournament.
I see.
Most other major tournament winning decks, if it was Briar, it was not running the Belittle package. Not to say it's not good. I don't think it's as good as the traditional package, like you might think. Some traditionalists out there, and I really would speak to the whole Briar where they're coming from, where people were teching, maybe they thought Briar got a lot better, Runeblade generally got better, was because of the hypothermia, right? I think that's where a lot of the tunnel vision was that, hypothermia is gone, because we saw that on the Dash side even. We're like, crap, great, this doesn't feel like an auto loss if they just get a hypo to really just take the wind out of our sails on a really good turn, and then they keep tempo the rest of the game. So I feel like Briar was riding those sails, so to speak, like, hypothermia is not going to keep us back. They don't have a whole lot of other tools to keep us back. They can, but I mean, that's like the major one. Mm-hmm. So I really feel like that, maybe some people got tunnel vision thinking that, there might see a resurgence, at least on Briar's side, at least, to push through these ice heroes. So I think it was that was partly a fair assessment from some people going in, teching towards the Briar side, thinking they might see a resurgence there.
but it was still really tough. And just seeing the field and like how Ice Heroes are still really dominant, like I think Briar still has a tough time because like fundamentally Briar wants to keep all their cards in their hand, and even with High with 3 million gone, as Adam mentioned, and Amulet of Ice, like Briar still has a tough time trying to use most of her hand to do something, and I think it's just going to continue. I was actually surprised that we saw a top 8 Briar. Like, that was actually pretty surprising to me. I thought it would have been the Fi or even the Dash, because like Fi and Dash got a lot more tools. Briar was still basically the same deck, and yeah, there's no belittle, but it was. I mean, to be fair, Tariq Patel, like, he is an amazing Briar player.
We got the first challenge.
Okay. So, but isn't in the assumption that you're teching for Briar, isn't Briar favored over Fi? So then you wouldn't bring Fi, right? In that case,
that's.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to metagame the metagame, right?
I would still bring Fi over Briar, actually.
Okay.
If it were me. Like, because and Adam actually brought this up in our last cast, where if you want to bring the best, if you want to play aggro, you want to bring the best aggro deck. And to me, the best aggro deck, even with Belittle gone, is still Fi.
I would agree with that.
I think Fi is still the best.
Basically, it comes down to Runeblades can brick hands. Fi really can't.
Fi really can. And I want to also mention too, for Briar, she still has one flaw that I think may not be talked about as much. She relies so much on channel to generate her power turns, and I think
but against Fi, she has Force of Nature, which just draws because Fi doesn't block. Right?
That's true, so. But then I feel like Fi has so many other ways to generate more card draws and be able to output so much more damage. So I feel like Fi, if I want to play in the Crucible Hero, I would pick Fi all the way.
If I understand it right, I see where Kevin's coming from. There's a lot more, like, Fi can consistently stretch his value over different cards.
Okay,
exactly.
Whereas Briar's focusing maybe more than just Channel Mount Heroic, maybe more than that, but still kind of limited relative to Fi's flexibility with where he's stretching his value in his cards and his play lines. I think that's what it. Yeah. If that much thing right, that's why.
That's kind of what I was trying to say with the brick. Like, like Briar can throw out a Channel Mount Heroic, and then obviously they put their ratios to where it hopefully doesn't happen.
Right.
But then they can draw like only one attack.
Right.
And then that doesn't make much use. Whereas Fi, like, he just gets attacks. Like, sure, he has maybe an Art of War, but now even with the Belittle gone, he can't even brick on like a bunch of Minnowisms or anything like that. Like, all his deck is attacks and Art of War.
Yeah, now, right, you're right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there's not really anything that he can fail on.
Yeah. So as far as the challenge goes, right, where we're metagaming the metagame, we would think that, right, even if you think people are teching against Briar, that you would bring Fi.
Well, I was just saying, under the assumption that Briar was right. If you're teching against Briar, then you're making the assumption Briar is going to be prevalent.
Yep.
And I know from my Fi experience, I don't like playing into Briar. It feels like a bad matchup because I can't stop her big turn. So if I think Briar's going to be there, I might go someone else instead of Briar. That was the logic.
Okay.
I think it's a lot of the gatekeeping Briar players just before she ends. So a lot of people aren't putting the time and effort in, especially if they haven't already put the time and effort in.
I mean, that's a very fair argument.
It's like
a very fair argument.
One win away from an LL, so why would you invest time, energy, and money, frankly, into a deck and equipment that's just not going to be relevant?
And the people that are invested, that want to do the best, might just switch to another hero anyways.
Right, especially if you're seeing more consistent value out of the play. Mm-hmm. If we're going aggro to aggro, right, I mean, it's also easier to play 5 for 8 rounds and then top 8 cut for 12 hours straight than it is to play Briar. It's just less everything.
I mean, I don't think that's debatable. Like, it's pretty easy to just go. Yeah. All right, so back to the original question. We'll go to you for this one, right? So the original question is, well, kind of, this wall of ice. I think collectively, it feels to me that the Flesh and Blood community, by and large, doesn't necessarily feel like it's an only ice meta. Hence the metagame within the metagame discussion. Yet, if you're outside looking in, you looked at the battle-hardened results of Wall of Ice, and you looked at the calling results of 7 out of 8 ice, and you're saying as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, well, their meta is just as busted as ours is, right? So how do we approach that from a community growth standpoint, or do we just So now, the disclaimer is we, like an hour ago, just got the results in from Battle Hardened Bologna, and it is 2 Icelanders, 1 Oldhim, 1 Lexi, 1 Dromai, 1 Fi, 1 Viscerai, and 1 Bravo, and I have unconfirmed reports that Bravo won. That is as of the time that we're shooting this, and in like 10 minutes, obviously everyone will know what happened, right? But, so that is a little more diverse, for sure. That said, same question to you of how do you sell a new person coming into the game who says, well, I heard that Oldhim and Icelander are the only precons to buy. Granted, there's no Icelander precon, I get it, but yeah.
Right, and maybe in a competitive format, in a competitive CC format, that you're going to see that wall of ice. To a new player coming into the game, though, the meta shouldn't represent their interest in it.
Shouldn't, but
might.
You're a very competitive game, right?
Right, but might. I think what we see, especially at these higher level events, is just... So, do you have the numbers for the actual attendance of each hero? Like what percentage?
Oh, of each hero? No, not right now.
Because
we could find it, but no.
Because that would answer the question more so than just these top 8 cuts. Because we know Icelander and Oldhim are both extremely consistent.
So, from what I remember, Icelander and Oldhim made up close to 50% of the entire field, if I remember correctly.
In Battle Hardened. But in calling, Oldhim had an amazing conversion rate from main field. It was
they were like
40%.
They were like
I think it was 40%.
They were like 5th and 6th or something.
I will put up the graphic.
Yeah,
credit to Mansent because he did that. I'll put that up. I believe it was 40%. It might have been 30%. He was matched to Azalea, who had like 6 people show up and converted 2. Mm-hmm. But then his conversion from even day, so that was day 1 to day 2, was like 40%. And then day 2 to top 8 was about the same or better. Mm-hmm. So that's a very strong, right? And we can have a whole separate cast about conversion rates, but like that was pretty impressive.
So back to the original question, new players outside looking in saying ice is the meta. It is.
Yeah, it is the meta. Yeah.
When you have half the field or roughly half the field showing up with, super slow fatigue ice heroes that sit there and wait to set up a turn, I mean, that is the meta. But depending on if and when the next ice hero comes out, if it has that same play style, you're going to see it fade away. And then you're going to see it replaced with something else.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say that the next ice hero probably won't be able to Wounded Bull in the Waning Moon, right? But maybe we'll test that. All right, so next, Rhinar player.
Yeah.
So Rhinar did pretty well. I mean, we're biased locally, right? Shout out to Nathan Dolman. Did pretty well during
I played him.
The early season.
ProQuest.
Yeah, thank you. ProQuest season. Yep. I was blanking. Thank you there.
Yeah.
So what's happened to Rhinar during these larger events, do you think?
Before I get into that, obviously shout out to Nathan Dolman. He is our best Rhinar player in this area. Obviously very well. He spent a lot of time with that. So with Rhinar, it's interesting because for me, as a Rhinar player, the more control the meta goes, the more comfortable I am. Because fundamentally speaking with Rhinar, the fact that he's able to intimidate cards out of someone's hands, when you intimidate cards like that, you're basically making the control player take different awkward decisions on blocking, and it favors. So on paper, as a Rhinar player, it should be a more comfortable matchup against Icelander and Oldhim, but in reality, that's not always the case. Although I will say, for me, I would rather play against Icelander and Oldhim than aggro heroes like Briar, Viscerai, and Fi, because they don't care about what cards I intimidate. They're just gonna be like, okay, you intimidate this card, whatever, I'm just going to shoot you back with like 35 or 40 damage. Or, I'm exaggerating, but just a lot of damage. And so, for me, I feel that Rhinar still has a place in the meta, or not as a tier 1, but like, he still has a small place into it. And maybe I'm biased because in Portland, we have a lot of people playing different decks, right? Like, you just mentioned Nathan Dolman. Like, he had a very consistent, like, he went to all the finals, like, just really crushed it for this area. But I think that really, that also shows that in Portland we have a lot of players who specialize in different heroes. You can call them pet decks, you can call them like, just the decks that we just specialize in for the longest time. And I feel that for Rhinar, in summary, for Rhinar, the more the meta is controlling, the better Rhinar will play. So I think that's one of the things.
So I think that begs the question is what we're trying to say though. If we think the meta is ice, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of established that we're trying to sell to a new player. We say, why play something other than ice? Don't. That's the meta. That's the decks that are getting the top tables. That's the decks that are winning. Where I guess the question is where did Rhinar go? Where did Waldo go? Where did Rhinar go? Kind of thing.
Rhinar can still. I feel like Rhinar has still has a presence. I don't think that he can consistently win events, but he can definitely get into top 8s.
Okay.
And I feel that if you're looking at just the top competition, yes, it's an ice meta for sure.
Yeah.
But if you're looking more towards like the regional level, I think it's just more open. Like it's more open to different heroes, different classes. So I think Brute has a place in the regional level. But in terms of the top, it's definitely a lot harder for Brute to break through.
Yeah.
I think it's also how you mentioned, like, they're fine into Iyslander and Oldhim, but not so much into maybe like Fire Briar.
Exactly.
So maybe the Fire and Briars are knocking out the Rhinars before they face the Icelanders and Oldhims, whereas Iyslander and Oldhim don't care who they go up against.
So it's just too varied of a meta
It's too varied.
at the initial stage,
Yes.
right? For them to even to get up against those Icelanders and Oldhims.
You know,
at
so
the top.
going back to Oldhim's conversion rate, like, he's fine against everyone, so he can make it to top 8.
Yep.
You know, if Rhinar's only good against the top meta and he goes against dashes and fives all day, he'll never make it to
Right,
that
he's
top
staying
8.
he's staying at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I'm glad you guys mentioned that. So yeah, I feel like aggro heroes will gatekeep Rhinars from doing well. I say just Rhinars because Levia players, it's really hard, and I really wish we can get more support for Levia because like.
Hey man, I lost to a Levia in ProQuest.
Oh yeah. Brute pack all day. I still believe in us, but yeah, it's hard. We are supposed to have better matchups as Iyslander and Oldhim, but yeah, for me, I feel like Iyslander. If I were to pick and choose between who I would prefer to play against, it'd definitely be Oldhim.
Okay.
Because Iyslander, it's so hard. They can just stay, like you guys mentioned, she can stay as patient as possible, and so you have like an all red hand, or just when your shields are down, when you're trying to do a blood rush, you're done. Like when you're like below 10 health, you're not gonna recover, and so.
She can also choose to just like dump her hand before you intimidate it.
Exactly, right? And so that's where what is said on paper just completely breaks. You know, Iyslander is still. I feel like Iyslander still has a better matchup than Rhinar than people realize. So that's my opinion.
All right. Fair enough. All right, so where does the rest of the meta sit then, Steven?
What do you mean?
As the man who likes to bring the outside heroes, no pun intended, to outsiders.
The dark
Mr.
horses.
Brainstorm Kano. No, that one we're not talking about.
The
But
spikes, the dark horses.
no, so we have Warrior. We have,
Right. Dash.
well, Dash we've got covered, but I mean, basically Warrior is about it, actually. I mean, Dorinthea is very, and Dromai.
There you go. Yep.
Dromai is very good right now.
Right. So
Actually, that's a fair question. Where is Dromai right now?
right.
Where is Dromai? Like, it's not like she has a lack of fan boys or girls or theys. Like, where is Dromai?
I think Dromai's there. I just don't think as many as other people, and I think the Dromais are getting better overall. And I think
Dromai feels very strong to me. So,
I think the only, like, from what I mean, I haven't played the matchup, but from what I've heard, Dromai needs time into Iyslander, and sometimes Iyslander can actually kind of not give them time to set up and stuff like that. And obviously, if Oldhim has plenty of poppers, if they need him and stuff
I mean,
like
that's
that.
fair. Oldhim would probably wreck.
Right.
That's fair. That's
right.
fair.
That's what I was going to mention. Is Oldhim, I think, is gatekeeping a lot of Dromai right now. But similarly, right, Iyslander, I played in that matchup, and it feels like, yeah, as long as you can, if Iyslander can speed it up a little bit, to not get overwhelmed by the dragons. And even then, like, you could still, she runs a few poppers, which timely enough can make or break a match, I feel like. But overall, right, she can press on the gas if it's kind of needed, kind of thing. That it not necessarily an easy matchup, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a bad matchup either with Dromai.
I mean, I do think Dromai is like, I'm so bad with the tier levels, but like it's like the mid tier. Like she can win, she can do well, and I wouldn't really say she has many like bad or unwinnable matchups. Just some of her matchups are really tough.
Yep. So a little bit of luck, maybe at least navigating.
You know,
that
I mean,
road.
similar honestly to Viscera. I kind of feel the same with Viscera. I think into most heroes, it's no worse than 40-60. And the worst being Icelander. And that's maybe like a 35-65 type thing in Icelander's favor or something like that. But like Oldhim is bad, but not that bad and stuff.
So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just not enough overwhelming better matchups for Gongaii to really keep the weight up. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's a good point. Does she actually like dunk on any hero?
I would say no. Yeah, I can't think of any up to my head.
Definitely not Rhinar. although I will say the really good Dromai players I have trouble against. They know when to attack, when not to attack, when to keep their dragons at bay. So
Pitch stack the rakes, kids.
Yes,
Stack the rakes.
So you just unintentionally described the rest of the meta into the wall of ice. 40-60.
Well, I was actually, when he was talking, I was kind of thinking, I was like, I think
rest of
Billy
the
just
heroes.
made our closing statement for us.
yes,
Because I mean, absolutely any hero can spike a match,
Yeah.
yeah.
but you have to spike the match into an Icelander or Oldhim because they are just unfailingly consistent with what they can do.
My challenge card,
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you're throwing it at me? You didn't even throw it.
Boltyn.
Felling swing.
Boltyn.
Yeah, I'm amazed we do not see Boltyn.
I don't think
winning more.
Boltyn can spike here.
Dude, Jimmy Lee.
I get it. There's
I can't. Fantastic.
Absolutely, I
Shout
get
out,
it.
bro. If
The
you're not
one.
watching this, but shout out.
There's like the one, I get it, for sure the one. I'm looking for someone who's not named Jimmy Lee, who plays Boltyn, that is going to spike a match. That's what I'm looking for. So I challenge. Boltyn is the one I feel can't, that's CC legal, we'll say now these days, because my answer would have been different, obviously, before this, when like Benjis and stuff were rolling around.
Nudge, nudge.
But Boltyn,
Benji CC.
I see Boltons, man, and I've played them with so many different heroes, and it's like each time right now, it just feels so rough for them. No matter what hero I'm playing against them, no matter what kind of play style, it just feels like they're struggling against me. So I feel like I would be astonished if someone not named Jimmy Lee.
I think the better
or
statement
other
is, I
words.
think Bolton's struggling against himself.
Yeah,
But,
that right, exactly, yeah.
Well,
So
okay, so
that's my challenge of the day, Boltyn. Man, you got to step it up
to
somehow.
answer that, how many players that are top tier players are investing the time and energy into Boltyn instead of Icelander Oldhim?
Definitely fair.
You're not seeing the same skill level because it's not the meta.
Yeah.
Fair.
Not
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
there's not super skilled
Yeah,
players.
but
you're
I
not
mean,
seeing it.
that's kind of the counter-alt argument. It's like, well, the reason Icelander's good is because all the top players are on Icelander. It's like, well, the top players like can do math, right? So like,
Well, I think
If something was better, that's where they would go.
Yeah, I mean, Boltyn gets absolutely just destroyed by, I mean, any of the top aggro matchups.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you have your gatekeepers gatekeeping you.
Well, and
then you
Icelander
have
can
your-
still shut down his pot. Like he's a combo hero, and she can shut down his combos.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here,
Yeah,
you're
it's
gonna-
super
you're gonna
easy to
come in with
recombo,
your-
unfortunately, right? It's like one of those.
What is funny though is as much as I want Boltyn to get help because he is a hero I like to play back in Monarch, he'd be so easy to make too busted.
Oh, yeah.
With certain things, so whatever will help him has to be very specific, or else he'll be too good.
The ability to store energy or whatever you want to call it is very
Well, like the
potentially broken. Right?
I'm about to say, there's lots of things that he could get that can help. It's just if he gets too much, or if he gets something honestly, as much as I would love an attack reaction that charges, it's way too good with Raiden. Because all of a sudden it's bluff 0 that could be 7, and you don't know until after you've decided to block.
Yeah, fair enough. So then, I mean, I assumed when we sat down this was going to be the conclusion because that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And obviously I mind controlled you all. But I do think that the internal perception is that the meta is more diverse than the... again, obviously we had today's results, which, changed the plan for tonight. But
Right.
outside looking in then, right? Take your Fab love off. I'll go to you first, Billy, right? Take your love for Fab off. If you're outside looking in, do you think it's a healthy meta?
I mean, I would, from what I know, I've never been much of a meta gamer and stuff like that to know what it is, but from what I've heard, generally a meta is like a top 2 or a top 3, which we have,
Right.
We've got Icelander and Oldhim as the obvious top 2 with potential counters and upsets in Fi and Briar. So that's 4 heroes that you realistically can consistently see in top 8, and that would be used to describe, I believe, a healthy meta in most other card games.
I mean, I think that's a fair argument. Most metas are happy if they have the triangle, right? And that may not be the way we want it to be, kids, but that's the reality of the situation.
So yeah, I mean,
that's a fair argument.
As much as I love every hero to be top, it's just not feasible,
right?
Challenge time?
No, I'm not gonna challenge. I'm not gonna challenge.
He just patiently waited. He didn't want to burn his challenge.
You ripped the card, man.
Felling swing, man. You gotta. That's it. It's the felling one.
You only get it once.
I swear, when the warrior is able to use that merciless battle axe,
never that card. Cleave, yes. Never that card.
Both.
Anyway, yeah, both. So, I think this meta is healthier than we've had in the past. Like, I did not like it when Starvo was the thing.
Yeah, but I think comparing, like, I'll pull another challenge.
No, that's not. Oh, okay, yeah, you can.
It's not fair to say, hey, the worst meta that we've ever had is better than that. Like, that's not fair.
That's true.
Right.
I mean, I'd argue that it's not just Starvo though. Like, I like this more than I liked the Prism meta.
The Prism, yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
Like, of all the bad metas, like, I actually think this is the least egregious.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, the Prism meta was kind of the fallout of the Starvo meta, but I understand what you're saying, right? And like Viserai was really good back then too, right? He was.
Yeah, I mean, he was
the 20% of the triangle. It was an isosceles triangle.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, before Icelander kind of was cracked to where people figured out what was good with her. Yeah, Viserai was a lot better,
right?
Because he had pretty good game into who was top then,
right?
I just feel that new players should not be discouraged from playing the game if it's all ice meta. I think that there are viable heroes that can break into the top 8. I mean, and for new players, they're not going to care about like being super competitive and all that. Like, it's a very small percentage.
I think a lot of them do, because we are Flesh and Blood right now is cannibalizing from MTG. That is its largest conversion population, and a lot of people are tired of. Like, have you tried to play, like, Magic Ramp? Have you tried to actually put a creature on the board in Magic lately? Like, creatures don't rule the game. It's tokens and stuff. Right? So, that's a control-heavy meta. So you go from a control-heavy meta, welcome to Flesh and Blood, which is a control-heavy meta. I think that's not a great selling point.
But doesn't that speak to just control in general? Skilled players in control.
Yes, well, that's an absolutely accurate statement. Control will always be favored in competitive games. I
think the biggest problem is it's not only control with the ice heroes, it's control and tax. Like, taking away Winter's Wail, I think you're going to see Oldhim lists shift dramatically from what they are. I mean, dramatically.
Hot take. Should Crown of Seeds have been banned? There we go. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll turn 43. I've used Crown of Seeds every turn.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just go around the table.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Absolutely. I have been a proponent of Crown of Seeds being the most egregious, most power creeped card ever in this game. I will go on record on that. That card should have been banned a while ago, and I really think,
But it's a legendary, Adam.
It is.
But we can't do it.
That's why I say it. So if we look at it, I will stand on this.
Throw it,
I will
Kevin,
die.
throw it.
I'm challenged. That's it. We think Seeds is not what? What are we challenging, Kevin? What are we challenging?
I don't think that Crown of Seeds should be banned.
Okay.
I think it should be eroded. I think.
Interesting take.
I think that instead of like, it usually costs 1, right?
Right, it costs 1 resource.
It should cost 2
once per turn.
So it's still, you can still Crown and Rampart every turn.
Okay, but maybe
You've done
3.
nothing.
But maybe 3.
Yeah. and you still
But that
replace
still
the
turns
card.
off the floating for
Maybe-
Brothers in Arms, Oasis Respite.
I mean,
Okay.
it helps.
maybe not once per turn. It's maybe once per turn action. I think maybe that.
So on your turn only, not
only
as an
on your
instant.
turn. I think
Okay.
if it's only on your turn, then I think it's a viable thing.
Do we think? Well, I guess that begs my counter
I can
question.
feel the dislikes on the video in my heart right now.
That begs my counter question.
You can
What do we
direct it
think
to
is
me, it's
better?
fine.
That begs my counter question. This might be another cast or something. If you don't want us to go too deep, let us know. What's better, a ban or an errata?
A ban.
Exactly. I agree, and that's why I say it should be banned.
That's fair because when the Radas
I know you had an urgent delivery for me, Kevin. Nicely played, but
Cards were handed out at random.
well, okay. I mean, gosh, because It's tough because like I like the concept of Crown of Seeds, even though I'm not an own player. I can appreciate it, but at the same time I am annoyed when it gets played on me. But I think if it's played on your turn, it's less egregious.
Put it this way. I like to think of it this way. When a Crown of Seeds is used throughout the course of a game, especially in Classic Constructed, because I know it's actually already banned in Blitz for similar reasons.
For very similar reasons.
Yeah, exactly. When you use the Crown in Classic Constructed in a control-heavy meta, when we're going the distance on turns, how much life do you think that card prevents over the course of the game, and at what cost? It doesn't cost you a card because it replaces itself. That to me is
So I was going to
egregious.
save this until the end, but the first ban Flesh and Blood ever made was Drone of Brutality, on the argument that it was preventable damage that didn't cost you anything, which went antithesis to the concept of the game. How is Crown of Seeds any different than Drone of Brutality?
I mean, I agree
Rest
with
my
you.
laurels on that as well.
And I also just undercut a cast that I've already had shot.
I didn't want to go too deep. See, I asked you.
It's been sitting in the realm because
Yes.
I shot it the night that the BNS came out, and I was like, well, I can't post this for 2 weeks, so there we go.
Yeah. So that's my take. My long-winded.
No, it's
yes,
solid take.
Crown of Seeds
Solid
should be
take.
banned.
Billy.
Semantics, I think it should be suspended, basically, while Oldhim exists.
But that's effectively a ban, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, Briar can still use it, but Briar doesn't use it. But it's also that's why I said semantics, because like banned indicates they might be gone forever, whereas a future Earth hero might not abuse it as bad as Oldhim currently does.
I mean, that's a fair argument, and then maybe it ruffles the what I paid $250 for it.
Exactly. That being said, I think the argument that LSS made for like we're watching it, that's tough to ban it. Like, while I want it to be not in CC with Oldhim currently, I get the arguments for why they didn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
It does make sense to me, even if I don't like it.
Right. Well, I mean, their arguments was basically like, yeah, we think it probably should be, but few wings, right? I mean, that was their argument.
Less feelings and more like someone paid a lot of money for
they
it.
want to protect
and it's
Is it legendary?
It's a legendary. Like it does come down to basically it wasn't like they didn't hide it. It wasn't banned because it was a legendary.
Yeah.
If it was Majestic equipment, it would have been banned.
Yep.
All right, your call.
Crown of Seeds.
Okay, so kind of a case, an actual example, right? So, in our cup, our team cup that we did, Dice Commander team, we had a game.
Well, the Fab Foundry Team Cup.
Fab Foundry team cup. So our team, we had a game where one of the players went 43 turns, and Crown was used every single turn. That is literally doubling your effective life at no cost whatsoever.
Exactly.
That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. And making it an action effectively just makes it a deck cycle. Say it. You don't have a card anymore, but say it.
Yeah.
No, you challenge, yeah.
No, I'm not gonna change it. No. When you brought that up, and it was Simon was our player that played against me.
Yeah, and he had this Oldhim player.
Simon's kind of a good player too.
No, he's a great player. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had this Oldhim player dead to rights for like the last 14 turns, and the game was just drug out by Winter's Wail, Bastion, Crown of Seeds.
I am so glad you brought this game up. I almost forgot about that. Why did I say it should be run? It should be fine. It should be banned.
There we go.
I actually think that in your defense, I don't agree, but in your defense, I think that bringing up the errata argument is fair.
Yeah, but
I think it's fair. I'm in his camp. I agree, but I think your argument's fair.
But I also feel that when a card gets errata, I feel like a lot more people would say things about it, because it's like, because I feel like more people would have pitchforks against a card that's errata rather than a ban. It's like, you made a mistake. Why didn't you think of this more sooner? Like with Briar, right? Briar was errata. It caused a lot of controversy with just like
Well, but the difference there being there's a couple differences there, just from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
You can't ban it, like banning a hero.
No, that's fair. That's
right.
Fair, yeah.
So they had to do that errata, and then the other part was because, and I'm not saying, just chill out. I'm not saying that LSS would have to, but they set the precedent in that case that when they errated something, they would supply the card to
the community.
That's true. Yeah.
And
Got
then
it.
now you're supplying a legendary to the community, so you're effectively, the reason they don't want to ban it is because they don't want to make the card worthless, but
Well,
in that case it would make it worthless.
there's been
and that's not
other-
to say you would have to do that, but again, you definitely have some portion of the community like, well, where's my free
I
card?
guess I'll
man?
use.
Right.
I guess I'll use my
Oh,
challenge.
there you go.
There have been
Spectral Prowler.
there have been other erratas that they didn't replace the cards for.
Oh, that's fair, actually. That is fair. No, that's a you, actually, you get your challenge back because that's a
Oh.
Your challenge back because I was wrong.
I mean,
Right.
the one I know is Become the Arc Knight.
yeah. You're
Like
right.
it
They errata? Oh.
Yeah, well, they did. It's printing in unlimited. So it
I mean,
was not.
technically
It was
Katsu, right?
It wasn't.
Like
it wasn't a
same,
fun.
right?
Yeah, it wasn't a functional errata.
You're right.
But it was a wording errata because it wasn't clear in the original printing what you could do with it.
Yeah, but Briar was but I accept that. You get your challenge back. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Set the precedent that when a hero's errata, they would supply it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you can't like banning a hero.
But it's also like the other cards that have been errata, like they're not expensive. So it's easy to get the replacement.
But that's back to the because it costs me money's argument, right?
It is.
And I don't. Is that how you should do the game? You know what I mean? Like
Balance of the game or balance of someone's wallet.
I mean,
balance of the game versus balance of the product.
it depends. Do you want to argue for LSS or do you want to argue for the average consumer? Because for the average consumer, they probably like,
Fair.
I don't want to waste the money, type of a thing. It's
Perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I want LSS to stay in business. I know that. Go ahead, Kevin.
So I have a question for you all. So with outsiders coming in, and like we've already seen like cards like the Blood Rot Pox
Yep.
and other sort of like disrupt, like just cards that we feel could just
Spoiler warning, I guess, if no one stays away from
spoiler
those.
warning.
We'll talk about some cards.
All right, if you haven't seen it, well, we're not sorry. So I'm assuming that for those who are watching this, that you guys are kept up.
That's right. Yeah, we're
Okay. So
There is only a 15-minute spoiler lockout
Yeah.
warning for card games.
okay,
Sorry.
so clearly there's gonna be a shakeup with like how these cards are like gonna be in play. So with outsiders coming, like how do you guys feel this would affect the current ice meta? Do you feel that what is it like aggro disruption would be a thing because we're seeing I feel like a 1/6 that can deal like a blood rod would be
I feel like Oldham's still pretty good against that.
okay
Yeah, I would argue that like I don't think Icelander and Oldhim are that worried about it because they
Cost me a blue? Oh no.
yeah, well, or they just block it. Like it's
block it,
it's an on hit that they block. It comes down to like how because we haven't seen a lot of cards, but they have kind of a tease that there's a lot of maybe attack reactions and other mind games that you might have to play around. So it might change decks around, but the effects itself aren't like absolutely backbreaking. I mean, it depends on the hero and stuff like that, but like Blood Rot definitely generally seems the best. But as mentioned, it just takes a blue.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of blocking with the blue, you can save the blue, like whatever saves you the most damage type thing.
I do want a disclaimer though. I think Blood Rot Pox token is Blood Pot Rot, whatever. Yeah. Whatever. I think it's going to be very good in Blitz, not in CC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a
Right,
lot more
because
impact there, yeah.
you've seen the one where it's like a 0/3. If it lands, you Blood Rot Pox, and if there's an attack reaction, you can give it the ability. So you could like double land a blood, and in Blitz, that's like very doable.
Yeah, that's
And
50% of a life total.
Yeah,
And,
that's
like,
yeah,
It
that's
really,
a big deal.
it really depends what stealth means.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also fair. Also.
Because a lot of the things that seem to inflict the diseases also seem to be stealth related.
Yeah.
The attacks themselves that inflict it and the attack reactions that can inflict it have to target like stealth cards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a lot of unknowns. I think to really make a good call on that yet.
Yeah. I like the question where Kevin went with it though, and I think we don't know enough information. What we know for right now, I agree. I don't see it really impacting a lot of what we see in the meta with the top heavy ice stuff. Because they're used to being reactionary. They're used to being, hey, yeah, this is going to cost me a card or a blue here or there to prevent or to mitigate or to play around. They're used to playing that style. I don't think it'll make much of an impact.
All right, fair enough. So we're closing in on closing time.
Yeah.
Cue closing time song without copyright violation. So Let's go around the table, kind of closing thoughts, and then I'll ask one last closing question. So, Kevin, any closing thoughts?
Rhinar is still going to be a thing. He will have a presence no matter what the meta is. But if it's more control-y, we're going to be there. We'll be there.
Well, then you're going to be there, baby.
We're going to be there. If it's purely aggro, we'll have to figure out different solutions.
We called out sick that day.
He called out blood rot.
I'll use up all my sick days for that, yeah. But no, I'm personally, for me, I'm still going to play Rhinar for CC, although I am intrigued by Riptide and Uzuri. I think I am curious to see what their abilities are. I mean, given the fact that Riptide has 1 less life in Blitz and 2 less life in CC, if compared to the standard.
Because that's how math works.
That's how math works, right? So Riptide looks like a brute. I think I'm gonna lean towards Riptide. We'll see. So.
He looks like a brute.
Looks like a brute, plays like a ranger.
He's green.
And
He's green, sign me up.
I play Azalea for Blitz at times, so...
Blending worlds.
So, yeah, with that said, I hope Riptide will be a hero that I can give a good go in Blitz.
I'm excited for Ice to be gone in general.
No!
It's not enjoyable to play into. While it may be great, it's not something I enjoy playing. It's not my play style. I don't enjoy getting taxed. Like, I play a card and it's like, oh wait, hold on. Your turn's just destroyed now. Okay, so I'm gonna fuse this. Okay, go ahead and discard or pay 2. Okay, discard or pay 2 again. It's like, all right, cool. Well, yeah, just pass. Arsenal, pass. Oh, Waning Moon for 3. Great. Now, I guess not.
See, we're laughing, and all the competitive players are just like, just get good, brah. But
that's
just
to the population that we're trying to attract, I think that's a valid argument.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
I hope this was a good learning experience for LSS.
To be fair, I think they are pretty good at like learning.
Yeah,
from
I
things.
think LSS is pretty good.
I guess my closing thoughts. I mean, related but unrelated. I'm excited for Outsiders. Not really what we're talking about, but that's I guess the only closing thought. But I guess then, based off of what you said, it just made me think like. I actually do like the control play style. I don't play it though because everyone else hates it, and I don't want to be the person everyone else hates. But I actually do like the play style.
Whatever happened to build up 60 rune chants and go for broke, man?
I mean,
Block,
I did used to do that in Blitz. It was fun.
There are decks that still do it.
But that at least like I wasn't ruining your turn. I just wasn't doing anything.
No, I just meant versus Oldhim. Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I still do that against Oldhim.
Good. Okay.
That's how you beat Oldhim with Viscerai. At
Swing
least.
for 2 with 30 on the back.
I wish it was
on the front, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to actually go again, 9th Blade, Revel, to then do another 9th Blade.
Nice.
I've done that once before.
Yeah. 2 parting thoughts from me. First, to piggyback off of, I think what Billy's getting to is, right, this negative player experience. And I think that's not to be overshadowed, right? We think about how the decisions are being made for the game as far as the meta goes, as far as the health of the game, and sometimes it creeps in, as most games, right, we've been around a while, most of us doing this negative player experience. How negative does my feelings get to when I'm playing against this ice hero based on the decisions that were made for bannings, for creation of new cards, all kinds of things. And I feel like, unfortunately, with some of the decisions recently, that's kind of where we're treading.
Sure.
With the Oldhim specifically, right? I can bring out a specific example. They banned Winter's Wail. What was the reason to run ice cards in Oldhim? Was to get the effect from Winter's Wail. There's really nothing other than Glacial Footsteps that really cared about ice cards, period, for Oldhim, right? Tell me another card that really cared about being ice.
Well, Oldhim himself
was
did.
his
For his
reaction. Sorry,
reaction?
for his reaction. How many times did he really use that reaction in most top-level games?
Not as much.
Once or twice.
Not as much as Winter's
They
Wail,
would
but
use
yeah.
it in a very opportune time.
Well,
and
that's why I stopped playing Dorinthea for a long time. But
right.
Yeah.
so yeah, that ability could be used to some great effect depending on where you're at in the game. It could make or break a game. But by and large, the deck construction for Oldhim was centered around taking the most effect of Winter's Wail, using an ice card to threaten both a breakpoint and disruption. Two very key things in a competitive game. And I think taking that away really pigeonholes Oldhim into a more controlling negative player experience with these longer games. Fatigue, excuse me. Fatigue. To fatigue play style.
Was this the first major event that we just had the top 8 after the banned and suspended?
No,
Indy.
Indy was, and that's why Indy was very concerning, I think.
Yeah.
And hence why we're here.
So that's just my first point is I think we should all be cognizant and tread lightly on how the impact, the effect of negative player experience compounds from these decisions, because it happens. Secondly, Gongaii, great store. Commando 10 at checkout.
Oh, yeah,
great store. I gotta get that plug in there.
I didn't even tell him to do that.
Online, right? They serve beer if you're in the local area. Great place to come play. You'll see us. You'll play great games. We guarantee that, and they have great beer. If you have a bad day, you'll buy a few more packs like I did today, just to make yourself feel better. But we hope to see you here at Gongaii.
Wasn't there still
a
a final question?
There is, but I like the plug.
Yeah.
And actually, this is why I love these guys, because we're all on the same page. That's exactly where I was going. So the final question is just a yes or no answer. All right? So you spoke specifically about the NPE experience. And there's a lot of people, it's like, but Fab is a competitive card game. So has the question... Let me phrase it correctly. The question I'm asking is, has Flesh and Blood hit the break point where it needs to shift from being a competitive game to a people's game?
So yes or no? Yes.
No.
Interesting.
I mean, I played Brainstorm Kano and I said no. Like, it needs to stay competitive.
Well, I don't mean we stop having... All right, to clarify, we'll go around the table. I don't mean we stop having competitive events.
Oh, no.
But I'm saying in order for Fab to grow at the Armory level, does Fab... We got the answers. We'll have the...
I'm about to say,
we'll do it in a future cast.
That sounds good.
So we had yes, no. Fab is a competitive game.
All right.
Say it with me, folks. Go
Commando!